Kisu, quick, quiet. Good evening, everyone. We acknowledge that the city of Fernie is located within Kukanamukas, the unceded territory of Yakitak Nucleat First Nation. We recognize that we live and work within their vast lands. Akanahunik are from Yakitak Nucleat and are members of the Ktunaxa-speaking peoples of British Columbia, Idaho, and Montana. We'll call the meeting to order at 6:31. And before we approve the agenda, can I just call on our CAO to make a staffing announcement, please?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you will know and staff by email today, we were happy to announce that we have appointed Ms. Camille Neal as the regular Director of Corporate Services with the City of Fernie. I just want to recognize she's been in an acting role, providing that leadership for the organization for quite some time. And just really pleased after an extensive search to have been able to offer position to her and have her accept and take on that job. With that, Camille, any comments? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm honored and grateful for the confidence placed in me for this director appointment. I've thoroughly enjoyed leading the team over the past year and a half, and I'm excited to continue building on the great work we've done underway. I also want to acknowledge the exceptional team members across the organization and the colleagues who are really dedicated, professional, and genuinely proud to serve the community. That's what makes this opportunity so meaningful and exciting. So thank you.
Thank you and congratulations. Can I get a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda? That the June 16th, 2026 Committee of the Whole meeting be adopted. Councillors McIsaac and Hamilton, any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, approved. I will now invite members of the public in attendance or participating electronically who wish to comment. Oops, I forgot the minutes. Rats. This spare mayor stuff makes this look really easy. Can I get a mover and a seconder to adopt the May 19th Committee of the Whole meeting? And Councillor McIsaac and Councillor Hamilton. Sorry, Councillor Nixon. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that's done. And now I'll invite members of the public participating in person or electronically who wish to comment on items listed on the meeting agenda in accordance with section 3.7.3 of the procedure bylaw to address council, except speakers must not address council regarding a matter for which a public hearing must be held or has been held pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of the matter or adoption of the bylaw. Speakers must not address council regarding a permit for which public notice must be given or has been given pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of issuance of the permit. A speaker may only address council for a maximum of 3 minutes, and speakers are asked to state their full name and community of residence. Is there anyone that wishes to speak? Well, we are going to move on to item 6.1, which is a delegation from our Fernie Pickleball. Mr. Phillips and Ms. Stoka. Welcome. Yeah, Bill, or Mr. Phillips, there's a button for the microphone.
There you go.
And we'll have 10 minutes for your presentation, and then we'll have some time for questions.
Okay. Oh, because this is in the way, hey? Brendan, what's the quick? Super.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Bill Phillips. I'm president of Pickleball Fernie. I have with me Terry Doka, who's vice president, and Steve Thurmeyer, who's part of our executive, is watching on to make sure that we don't make any mistakes. Pickleball is the fastest growing sport in North America. I don't have any empirical evidence about that, but what I do know, Pickleball Fernie is part of that trend. In 2022, we had 91 members. We now have 155 members and counting. Of course, I had nothing to do with that. But the increased interest in numbers has put pressure on the pickleball facilities available in the city. The Elk Valley Fieldhouse will go a long way towards alleviating the pressure during our winter, our indoor season, and we are excited for the opportunities that facility will offer. However, it is a double-edged sword as construction of the Fieldhouse will see the loss of 6 courts the city graciously allowed us to paint on the outdoor rink site. The loss of those drastically limits our summer season to the 2 courts at Max Turk. We knew the outdoor rink was never going to be a permanent solution. We have talked in the past about more outdoor pickleball courts in Fernie, and with the loss of the ODR, we are more motivated than ever to find a location and construct more courts. While we would still need to fundraise to build more courts, we feel we are in a better position financially to proceed than we were a couple of years ago when we first started talking about this. The first step is determining a location. To that end, we have determined 3 possible locations in order of preference. Number 1, the Annex Park, best described as the field where the bat houses are. This location is our number 1 pick for a couple of reasons. Firstly, its size. The field would easily accommodate 6 to 8 pickleball courts and still have room for expansion and parking. Secondly, it is not directly adjacent to a residential area. The area is basically across the dike from any residential area. Our number 2 preference is building on the existing courts at Max Turk. We went and measured, and there's room to add 4 courts to the 2 existing ones. They would be offset a bit, and it would be a weird configuration, but we could put them in there if we had to. The benefit here is that we could have a 6-court complex by adding 4 courts. The downside is that it is near a residential area, and parking, I got here, could be an issue, but it's already an issue down there. So our number 3 pick is James White Park. There is room for 4 courts between the 2 ball diamonds, or 6 courts between the ball diamond and the tennis courts. The benefits to James White are that it's away from residential, and courts there fit with the overall recreation aspect to the courts of the park. So one of the downsides, though, is we know that you're already having problems with the tennis courts with roots coming up, and it would be in the same area, and we'd have the same problems. So that could be an issue. Pickleball Fernie is committed to increasing. You can click those anytime. Yeah.
I know, I would just, because there's the, yeah.
Okay.
We're going to start with the vision.
Yeah. Pickleball Fernie is committed to increasing the number of outdoor courts in Fernie. Expanded court space enables us to hold events such as tournaments, which support the active living lifestyle that is emblematic of Fernie. All we need is a location. We don't require running water or electricity. A portable toilet like at Max Turk would be all that is required. We also understand that the City Fernie staff resources are at capacity, and the city employees don't need more facilities to set up and maintain on an annual basis. This is why we are all suggesting that Pickleball Fernie would build the pickleball courts and enter into a lease agreement with the City of Fernie, similar to the field house and the dog park. Once we have a location secured, we would begin fundraising. Grants are available to us through Pickleball Canada. And of course, we would fundraise locally through our membership and funding partners in the Valley. And that's it. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions from council? Councillor Hamilton and then Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you. I'm curious if your organization's had any discussions with the Outdoor Rink Society on co-locating a facility so that it's used for skating in the winter and pickleball in the summer.
Yes, we have. We have met with Jordy. On paper, everything sounds good, but when you get into the weeds, it's not. There's a lot of issues there. They're looking at a $2 million facility that's going to take a couple of years to build. We're looking at $200,000 that we could probably start building this year. There's other issues. They want concrete, and if you ever played sports on concrete, It's really hard on your knees. We want asphalt. We want a field that drains. They want a field that holds water. They want a roof. We're not opposed to a roof, but we would need a roof that's probably 25 feet high. I'm not sure that they would want to build one that high for a rink. And there's all kinds they need boards, we need fence, and we need fences in between, which means we'd have to take them out in the wintertime and storage. Plus they want to put an ice plant in eventually, which creates all kinds of other problems, especially if you want to do like the curling rink where they have those roll up things and roll them out and that kind of thing. We told them if they could do it, it would be great, especially if they're on the Pine Avenue site that they're looking for, because with the combination of the field house, that would give us like 14 courts right there. But we would still prefer to have our own facility that we can control. And that's about it. Yeah, we did meet with them. So we're not opposed to it, but there's lots of issues that we're not sure how they work out. And we're nonprofit, they're nonprofit. We can't really fundraise to help them. If they built it, we could probably rent it off them, that kind of thing.
But the two different surfaces, they want and need cement. We
Yeah.
want asphalt. It's really hard playing on cement. It's really hard on your body and your legs and your knees. Because a lot of us are,
Yeah.
not.
Our demographic isn't
Yes.
as young as it used to
Yes.
be.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. That actually answered a whole bunch of the questions that I had. One question I had is with regards to the Annex Park site, their field,
Yeah.
is that adequate? Like, is that sufficiently close to be
Oh,
able
yeah.
to take advantage of that as opposed to putting
Yeah.
in a whole new
Yeah.
bathroom site? Okay.
Yeah, until they put the porta potty in down at Max Turk, we would have to run into the school, which
Yeah,
is
okay.
probably about the same distance.
All right.
Maybe a little shorter, but
The other question I have, Acting Mayor, is I cannot recall, after reading this today, I was going back through and I cannot recall, other than about 7 years ago, a discussion about the potential and then dismissal of the use of that particular area for a snow dump. It has not come up in any report about any potential other usage. And I guess one thing I would like to hear from staff is if there have been potential other proposals or plans for that particular area before moving forward with this. But otherwise, I like the location. I think it's well thought out, obviously, they've considered a whole bunch of issues already, and I like it. But I would like that opportunity to hear from staff if there's been other plans or proposals for that area before moving forward.
Through to council, to my knowledge, nothing significant. Council should bear in mind that that area is not protected. It is on the outside of the annex dike. There is the quote unquote attack dike, but that is a berm, doesn't meet flood construction levels. So that's an area where we have intentionally shied away from supporting development that could be at risk of loss due to flooding because it just simply isn't protected by our diking network at present. Other than that, yeah. Likely will be also discussed with the Outdoor Rink Society as part of the outdoor rink site selection work that is coming up here very soon.
That actually was one of the things I was wondering about Max Turk was the location of where you might put courts there and if you'd be affected by water.
if you know where the existing courts are, what we had looked at was basically the one court's here, second court's there, then you move in, we would leave probably a 12-foot berm so they can access the, not berm, 12-foot access to get to the playground. And then start basically almost even with the second court, the first court, and then just go straight down the field, straight across the field towards the bank. Sort of almost parallel with the soccer fields. And the one corner would be out close to the gazebo, but not really that close. And the road that's there would, on the far side of the road, so the road would stay there. We know that the city needs access in there and that kind of thing. And we measured it out and we could put 4 courts in there.
But we're really close to that fence.
Yeah, it
Where
would go
that-
right, pretty much right to the end there.
So it's tight, very tight.
Thinking that it would
And
be
I know
tight.
we had a phone call today from the Child Care Society down at Max Church. Parking down there is already an issue. Like when we play down at Max Church in the wintertime, we can't even park in the parking lot. So that means anybody, and they have the childcare all summer. So that would mean we're parking on the street. So that's going to be affecting all of the housing in that area for parking in front of their homes and stuff like that.
Counselor Hamilton?
Thank you. The question is still kind of formulating in my mind, but as I look at the site options that have been identified here, 2 out of the 3 are outside of the flood protection, outside of our diking system. And I'm trying to think of the question, phrasing on the fly, but I guess with the construction outside of that flood protection, have you had any conversations with insurance and with, who would be constructing it on your behalf as to what impacts that might have on the plans?
Not at this point, no.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question. Is the James White Park still in a flood area? Yes, and all the housing and everything in that area is still under flood, is that correct? Like at least,
Like there is the dike behind, oh gosh, Proctor? Mr. Boranowski?
You're correct, Your Worship. There is the diking around the residential neighborhood, but the park itself is on the outside of the diking network.
Same issue, yeah. Excuse me.
CAO?
Just, which I would note, to be fair, is true of much of our green space. Fernie is, Fernie is blessed with rivers and floodplains, and that is just part of our reality.
Yeah. Yeah, and when we looked at the Annex Park, yeah, you're right, where we would have the fence, there's basically the fence and then there's the bike path and then there's a river. So it's really close. There's no doubt about that.
Counselor McIsaac?
Thank you. Just as a follow-up to that, I'm wondering about the nature of the actual construction and how affected it would be by flooding in there. So I remember in the 2013 flood, that all that area was under several feet of water for several days. And when it went away, there was like silt left behind. But otherwise, things like the bridge and so on that were there, they were intact. It was just muddy, right? So I don't know too much about asphalt. It's too bad Councillor Shoesmith isn't here, who probably knows more about it than most of us, but I don't know too much about asphalt. But what is the nature of it such that if the equipment was not there during the flood season, but the asphalt was left in place, would it be tolerant of several days of flooding, or would be destroyed and start over? Like, I just don't.
I would think that the base would be more susceptible, because we would put gravel on it and then put asphalt on top, and that, to me, that would be the big concern, is if that base started to erode away.
Yeah.
I think if you got silt on top, you can get in there and clean it up
Broom it off,
and
yeah.
wash it, and it'd be a pain, but I'm sure it can.
Okay.
with the construction of the base, it's all has to do with drainage as well. Because we have a company out of Calgary that's going to do reports, and it's very specific design in terms of the water flowing and drainage for the port. So I think that's a.
Yeah, and just to add, 2013, that same flood that went through James White, you remember how much water went through there?
Yeah.
And the baseball fields, remember the dugouts were just hydroed and cut out, the tennis courts,
Yeah.
right? The tennis courts weren't affected. I'm on Minton, I'm 3 houses down, and I play tennis as well. So just to answer that question, I would guess, not an expert either, but if the tennis courts were fine and that much water went through there,
Right.
hopefully we can construct it in a similar way, so they would be fine if there was flooding, right?
Yeah, and it's just to be clear, it's just curiosity. Like, if assuming that council says, great, go ahead and build it there, then it's your guys' responsibility to worry about
It's
that.
our issue.
Yeah.
But
Until we walk away from the lease and say.
yeah,
"It's your problem." No.
it was more of a curiosity perspective on my part. I do remember the flood in there, and I remember having a sweeper come in and sweep out the one area of the field, and everything seemed to be quite fine after that was done. Like
Yeah.
there was no real, no permanent challenges down there. But okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Nixon.
Thank
Oh.
you, Deputy Mayor Tracy Adia Kelly. I'm so confused when it's not your worship. I'm sorry. So just I guess a question, this would be very similar to what we have for the Fernie Outdoor Rink Society. We would be looking at site selection. I'm not sure if we would be referring to a recreation master plan or not, that we don't really have. But site selection, and then we'd find a piece of land, and then we'd have a lease with the land use agreement. Sort of that would be the same process as. So we would have to get them to talk to staff and with direction and all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah.
Certainly, if council is wishing to advance this at this time, a resolution directing staff to meet with the society and further site selection is appropriate. I'd ask our Director of Planning and Development Services, any other comments?
Counselor Hamilton? No.
Nope, no further comments. Happy to discuss.
I would just add one thing. If the city has some other location that is really good for us, we're all for it there too. 902 would be excellent.
Oh, yeah. That was really, really good.
But too soon. But seriously, we looked at where we thought, but we don't know where all the city has land and what's
Yeah.
available and all that kind of. So if you've had another suggestion of where we might go, we're all ears.
Something that's at least close to 16,000 square feet. So there's plenty of room down at the Annex Park where the bathhouse is. And
Thank
that
you.
allows for further expansion and, you know, we can go over how about all the tourism it brings and, you know, all that sort of stuff, but and there's lots of parking there.
Thank you. Yeah. You know, given all of the infrastructure issues we have and that we need our staff focusing on, I think we need to take advantage of when we have these community groups coming forward, willing to put in the hours and the time to plan and fundraise and build all these amenities that everybody in the community is going to take advantage of, not using a terrible amount of staff time and resources. So I would like to move a resolution that we direct staff to work with the Pickleball Society in identifying a suitable piece of land and providing them with a letter of support for their fundraising efforts.
Go for it.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Yes, I would just wanted to make a comment with regards to what you just finished off with there, Mr. Phillips, about looking for space. I appreciate that we have very enthusiastic groups who really want to move forward recreation. And I think speaking for council, we want to support them as best as possible. But ultimately, you know, we're the ultimate arbiters for land use, and we try to take as many considerations into our thought process as possible. Not all of them are just, let's make everyone happy. Some of them have longer term implications and so on. So I do appreciate that. It is kind of in our ballpark to help with the land use decision, but the goal is to get you forward to where you're able to accomplish something too. So I'm supportive of Councilor Hamilton's motion to get you talking to staff and finding a particular location and see if we can advance this. So
Awesome.
CAO, were you going to craft a motion for us?
Actually, yeah, thank you.
Would you mind reading it?
That committee directs staff to meet with Fernie Pickleball Society to discuss potential sites for their pickleball courts project and report back to future council meeting.
Moved by Counselor Hamilton and second by Counselor McIsaac. I really appreciate you coming out tonight, all of you, and thank you for the forward thinking and flexibility that you have brought to the table. And I'm curious more about the grants, but I'll talk to you about that offline after. But I really appreciate that you came out tonight. And if there's no further, nothing further from council, can we call the motion? All those in favor? Thank you. That was unanimous. Oh, you need the mic.
Yeah, sorry. So, no, I'm just saying that Fernie is kind of a little bit behind the 8 ball because Invermere is getting 8. Christina Lake has had 6 for many years. So, you know, it is because of the field house coming in that we did lose those 6 painted courts. And I guess I'll just say that we do have a lot of very enthusiastic members, a lot of them that play in tournaments and are very high up there in tournaments, not mentioning any names over there. But anyways, I was looking over a little bit more over that way. No, the other thing is that for our population, say 6,500, we have 155 plus members, which we had 2 new ones again this morning down there. And Cranbrook, which is 3 times the population, has about 215 members. So, you know, we're up there. They don't have 3 times as many members as us. They don't even have twice as many. So we're up there.
Well,
And-
thank you very much.
Yeah.
And Cranbrook, I think maybe you've just been issued a challenge. Oh, but yeah,
Yeah.
thank you very much for coming.
Yeah.
We
Okay,
appreciate it.
Thank you all.
So look forward to hearing from staff. So next on the agenda is item 7.1, our development approvals review tracker, a report from our Director of Planning and Development, Mr. Johnson.
This is the good part.
No worries. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you and good evening, Council. Thanks for your attention to what was a relatively brief report, but a fairly long spreadsheet. So I appreciate your attention to that, and I'll try and keep my remarks fairly brief, but happy to have some discussion on this. So just a quick agenda of the presentation. The purpose of this report is to update Council on the progress of the implementation of the Development Approvals Review Report. There's been a ton of progress on this effort, but this report reflects a desire to provide more structured and formal reporting on that progress. I'll provide a little bit of background on the initiative, as I'm calling it, the DART tool, Development Approvals Review Tracker tool, and some highlights and next steps. Brief background. So this project was initiated in 2022, completed in 2023. It was funded by the Local Government Development Approvals Program and resulted in the Development Approvals Review Report, which is available on the city's website. We have created a detailed tracking spreadsheet with a complementary dashboard, if you will, which is on the screen and included in the body of the report for simpler reporting purposes. There were 156 initiatives listed in that report, of which 116 are either completed or in progress. And a number of items, as we'll talk about in a few slides here, are underway, and with the completion and launch of the cloud permit planning module next week, we expect to be able to cross a few more of these items off as completed. So a quick run through of the spreadsheet setup, not meant to be able to read that necessarily, but looking at the attachment to the report, we've got columns for the ID directly from the report itself, a summary of the action, a priority as was established in the report. So there are 3 different priority levels. There's quick wins, progressive, and transformative actions, a percentage, or sorry, a status, so marked either in progress, complete, or outstanding. I'll just note that some of the actions in that report are written in a way that you could take them as sort of like cultural or long-term or ongoing actions. So for the sake of being able to mark something as completed at some point, what I've suggested and how I've approached this table is that if a process to implement that has been set up and we've exercise that action once and are approaching a review, once we've done one annual review cycle of that new process or procedure, we would flip that to completed. Then we have percentage completes, which in many cases is an estimate, a current status, and a next action. So some highlights as reflected in the report. There have been a number of significant efforts completed since this work was initiated, namely several bylaw updates, the building and plumbing bylaw, the land use application and procedures and fees bylaw, subdivision and development servicing bylaw, all updated. And in the case of our fees and our rates in those bylaws, the cost recovery model was developed and implemented. Cloud permit building permit launch, which was a very significant undertaking. I'll share a stat that our team pulled this afternoon, which was that since the launch of that in roughly June of last year, we've had about 350 workspaces created through that new system, or just about 1 per day. So it's been a very steady inflow through that new system. Zoning bylaw amendments through Bill 44. So the Development Approvals Review Report spoke to adding flexibility for creation of new housing units in Fernie. And so this was something we were able to action at the same time through Bill 44. Of course, resourcing for capacity and demand, establishment of a technical review committee, which is an internal committee looking at major projects and making sure we stay aligned on points of discussion and importance for different departments on those projects. And going with all of this, many behind the scenes procedural improvements to workflows and how we process and move applications through our departments, as well as public facing communications improvements on the website and other materials.
Councillor Hamilton?
Thank you. Since you brought it up, I made a note in the table 4.21 was a performance standard issue. And the question I had based on what was in the table was, does this include communication response time? But I think you just answered that it's perhaps incorporated through that last statement, that last bullet point.
Could I just clarify which row from the table so I can just double check my?
It was 4.21 is what I had written down.
Thank you for the clarification. So this is still something we are working on, where we actually have a bit more of a formalized target timeline for responses for things like initial inquiries and completeness checks. Yeah.
So somewhat of a service standard.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So some next steps, the cloud permit planning module is scheduled to launch next week, June 24th. We are hosting a information session for industry tomorrow, where we'll run through the new tool. We're also scheduling a bit of a demo for council at a July meeting as well. Definitely looking at refinement. We adopted a lot of new procedures, documentation, checklists, these kind of things. So reviewing those again now that we've kind of been using and practicing with these new bylaw amendments and new processes, and just making sure we're updating our materials to reflect the reality and how different hiccups we encounter along the way. The building team is also working on a number of building bulletins to support the contractor industry with things they can expect through the permit and inspection process. And these things have, in many cases, been requested directly by industry. So looking forward to that. A few more next steps, permit prioritization policy coming for council's consideration in Q3 of this year. We do have the 2026 local government development approvals program project application as well, which would be a significant improvement in terms of records management and file digitization. The asset management department is supporting us with the launch of a publicly accessible GIS property information map, which will really support a lot of the types of inquiries we get at the ground level for things like what can I do with my property? What development layers are there on my property? Where's the floodplain? Things like this. And then now that we've gone through the exercise of reporting out on progress for this, this major initiative, trying to regularize reporting on this, I'm suggesting probably biannually in sequence with our quarterly reporting, just as some of these actions take some time. So doing quarterly might not be the most effective in terms of seeing those outcomes. But so in closing, there's been a lot of major progress since the completion of this work. Really, this is about just being able to track and report out on that progress, as well as help us plan future work. And lots of improvements are still planned for this year and 2027. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from council? Councillor Nixon?
Thank you, Acting Deputy Mayor. I noticed you guys are doing an information session tomorrow, right? I saw that in the paper and you had just mentioned it as well. Is there any plan to record the session and for people to be able to watch it later on our YouTube channel or anything like that? Because that's 11 to noon might not be conducive for a lot of people.
Thanks for the question. I assume we have the power to record that meeting. So provided we do, I would definitely want to see it recorded. I don't know the answer specifically in terms of what was planned though. Yeah.
Nothing else? Oh, Councillor Nixon,
Some more.
follow up?
Sure. Yeah, great report. And when I look at all these initiatives, it's going to be amazing when it's all done. I think the only thing that's missing from this report, which is, it shouldn't be in there, but the actual permit data, which I looked up this morning, and it's a lot. Like Fernie's growing really, really fast. We issued over $74 million in construction value by May of 2026, which exceeds all of 2025 by 14 million. So, and then last year we were only about $500,000 off the entire East Kootenays. Like I think Cranbrook beat us out by $500,000 in total construction value. My question is this increase attributed to market conditions, or is it the new permitting and process improvements, or a combination? What's your opinion, Director?
Thanks for the question.
You're welcome.
Yeah, tough to answer. I mean, I suppose the market can demand things, but if we don't have the ability to move them through a permit pipeline, then we're challenged in realizing what the market's looking for. And I think as you remove those barriers through better process, then we're just going to cater to a stronger market. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but
yeah, I mean, it's great. I want to highlight it. I just think it's pretty amazing, but it's also a little bit scary too, from a growth perspective, that type of amount of construction value in our community. So anyways, I was kudos to the team as well. So.
Councillor McIsaac?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I didn't really have any questions about the report. It's outstanding and expected or exceeding. I'd like to say I'm looking forward to it all being done, but I have the sense that this is an ongoing thing that will never actually be done because we'll just be adding more stuff to it. But just with regards to the comments from Councillor Nixon and how this process changeover has been going from my perspective, I was first elected to office here in 2008. And while I wasn't here for a couple terms, once you're in this office, you tend to continue to hear city issues from people over and over. It wasn't until this year that I've had a developer in town compliment our process. Not since 2008. So, great work. Job.
I can only echo that. I actually touched base with a couple of developers that had communicated with us, and they were very pleased with how things are going. So kudos to the department, and we're having a report later tonight that sort of references parts of what you were talking about, Councillor Nixon, and how things fit together. So I was excited to see about the records management, and I have had feedback from developers about the current mapping. So hearing that that's being updated is pretty exciting as well. It may not be to everybody, but to those that want to develop, it is. So thank you so much. If there's nothing further. Thanks, Director.
Thanks very much.
And moving on to the next item, which is 7.2, our 2026 Union of BC Municipalities Convention Meeting requests, a report from our CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. No presentation accompanies this report, simply a follow-up on the last report and presentation to Council. Staff are seeking direction by way of committee direction on the topics to prepare our meeting requests for the 2026 UBCM Annual General Meeting and Conference that starts in September. As you will remember, the staff and agency pre-meetings will be online in advance. And then we do have a number of specific breakout groups, such as working with the Ministry of Tourism, Arts, Sports and Culture, that we will be doing as part of our resort community, resort municipality initiative collaborative. However, staff are recommending specifically that we advance meetings with cabinet ministers and staff to discuss our wastewater compliance project, MWR application, and our wastewater system. Meetings with the Ministry of Transit and Transportation to discuss works within the Elk Valley subregion, and specifically the intersection of Mount Fernie Park Road and Highway 3. Meetings with cabinet ministers and staff to discuss opportunities to advance economic development initiatives as we implement this new function in partnership with Fernie Chamber of Commerce. I would note on that, I just continue to believe that it's of value to reinforce with the province that we are in line with the Look West investment strategy and the strategic action plans that are coming out of that as their guiding documents. And then separately, based off direction from Council, and thank you for that, we reached out to community partners, and I defined community partners, for lack of a better definition, as any of those with a formal legal agreement with us to provide some form of service to the community, either out of our facilities or with direct funding or through a management agreement with us. Would like to thank the Elk Valley Family Society and jointly the Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Fernie as the groups who responded to that with specific requests. And I am recommending that we do advance a request on behalf of the Elk Valley Family Society for Council to meet with senior staff from BC Housing and any relevant cabinet ministers and staff to discuss the need for formal supports for the Elk Valley Family Society's Chrysalis House Second Stage Housing Initiative. And then separately, in response to the communication from the Chamber and Tourism Fernie, to request a meeting or meetings with BC Transit to discuss creative solutions for rural transit and transportation to support employment, tourism, and labor supply, and separately, meetings specific to labor supply relating to the temporary foreign worker and immigration programs. You will note in the report there are a number of potential requests. These were sufficiently focused that with work we can meet the requirements and are likely to achieve a productive meeting with the province. With that, I'm here for any questions or comments you may have.
Council, any questions or comments? Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I did my own little conversations as well with a few people in the community. I spoke with Principal Jason Summerfield at Fernie Secondary, and he had an issue with the Indigenous families. Currently, they have to repeatedly complete registration forms to access Indigenous education supports. And he did come with a solution as well. He said maybe a one-time consent model with an opt-out option, which would reduce administrative burden. So these families get called every single year and asked if they still want to participate in the program. And I see that as fairly intrusive because nobody calls me every single year to ask me if I want to, if I'm, how do you say it? Yeah, and so I mean, I think we should go and meet with some people, either the Ministry of Indigenous Affairs and Reconciliation or Ministry of Education, or maybe what we need to do is just come up with an email and send it to the people at will. But I think Mr. Summerfield I think they've already tried that a few times. So I can send this to you as well, Mr. Bronowski. The other one I also reached out to is Dr. Stimpson, who is our Chief of Staff. I asked him about accessing Alberta healthcare services, and our physicians are still having access, problems with accessing healthcare in Alberta. We were told at AKBLG that was resolved, but it is not. And I did actually have a few physicians in the community reach out and send me documentation saying that they've been, their referrals have been canceled. So those are the two that are kind of on my list as well. So I don't know what the process is beyond this.
If I can, through to council, I believe the corporate officer, as in the report, has the very long and wordy resolution to get formal direction from committee. Taking a moment to work with the corporate officer or the deputy corporate officer to add those for council consideration, if council concurs, is enough. Then we have that formal direction, and I would follow up with those contacts. As you know, there's a specific requirement for the introduction and the ask and the background, to develop those. And by I mean our team would follow up with those individuals. Yeah.
Councillor?
Thank you. I agree with the list thus far. To further Councillor Nixon's or perhaps to respond to Councillor Nixon's second suggestion with regards to health, that is on AKBLG's advocacy list, and AKBLG is requesting a meeting with the Minister of Health as well on that file of continued access issues to Alberta. So perhaps you could forward that to the advocacy committee and we can add that to our paper that our submission. I'm not the chair of that committee, but I can get it to the chair of the committee. And other than that, reading the report and reading the feedback, I really appreciate the work of going out and reaching out to our community members. The Chrysalis House, I think, is an extremely worthwhile opportunity to advocate on behalf of, being one of the only supportive housing facilities in the province that doesn't receive funding. As well, the Tourism Fernie and the Chambers desire to pursue a creative model for transit. And I think that, in my experience going to UBCM, just going and asking for money rarely is successful, and especially in the times that we're in with the province trying to cut back wherever they can. I think if we are able to go with a request that's a little bit different from something they've maybe hearing this year or have ever heard, it's going to perk some ears up and might help us get a little bit more traction on these topics. So yeah, I support all of these requests. Thank you.
I as well. And I really appreciate the work that staff's put into it. Thank you. So when you're ready with the resolution, can you let us know?
Your worship?
Apologies, sorry. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. I totally agree with the Minister of Health. So we shouldn't meet with them specifically, or we should refer it to AKBLG. But that's the best plan.
I personally don't think there's any harm in asking for a meeting, but I think the more that they hear it, the more it's likely to land and resonate with them. If they're hearing it from the same individual or individuals in two different meetings, that might be a bit of a problem, but I don't think that's going to be the case.
Councillor McIsaac?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think we should ask. I think if they want to filter down to one or two requests rather than hearing the same one over and over, that's in their ballpark to do that. If we think it's important, we should ask.
And seeing that we have 46 physicians in the Elk Valley, we might have more data points from the rest of the Kootenays combined.
Thank you. Can I just confirm with council, then they are supportive of both the additional meeting requests? Seeing nodding heads, then if we could take 5 minutes to work on that resolution.
We'll just recess. Reconvene. I believe we have a resolution ready. Can I get our Deputy Corporate Officer to read?
That committee directs staff to prepare a recommendation report that addresses the identified priorities contained in the June 16th, 2026 report and during committee's discussion, including the Ministry of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation, Ministry of Education and Childcare, and the Ministry of Health, which will also be used to guide Cabinet Minister and staff meeting requests for the annual Union of BC Municipalities Conference.
And seconder? Moved by Councillor McIsaac, second by Councillor Hamilton. Any further questions or discussion? No? Call the question. All those in favor? That is unanimous. If we can adjourn Committee of the Whole, if there's nothing further. Adjourn at 7:25. And can we move into our special meeting? So I'm going to acknowledge once again that we are located within Kukanamukas, the unceded territory of Yakitak Nucleate First Nation. We recognize that we live and work within their vast lands. Akanehunik are from Yakitak Nucleate and are members of the Ktunaxa-speaking peoples of BC, Idaho, and Montana. So if I can call the special meeting of council to order at 7:25 p.m. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda of the June 16th, 2026 special council meeting? Councillor Hamilton, Councillor Nixon. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's passed. I would once again invite the public in attendance or participating electronically who wish to comment on items listed on the meeting agenda in accordance with section 3.7.3 of the procedure bylaw to address council, except speakers must not address council regarding a matter for which a public hearing must be held or has been held pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of the matter or adoption of the bylaw. Speakers must not address council regarding a permit for which public notice must be given or has been given pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of the issuance of the permit. The speaker may only address council for a maximum of 3 minutes, and they're asked to state their full name and community of residence. Do we have anyone online that would like to speak? And seeing no one in the gallery, can we move to item 10.1, our automated vote counting system authorization bylaw number 2554/2026? Ms. McElwee.
Your worship and council, there is no presentation on this. Our procedure has been just to consider the adoption, but the recommendation is that council adopt the bylaw this evening.
Councillor Hamilton,
I'll move the recommendation, please.
seconded by Councillor Nixon. Are there any questions? Call the question, everyone. That was unanimous. And item 10.2, which is election and assent voting procedures bylaw number 2557, and its consideration for adoption. And the staff recommendation is that we adopt the election and assent voting procedures bylaw number 2557/2026. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, second by Councillor Nixon. Any questions? All those in favor? That was unanimous. So if we can move on to our item 11.1, which is a water system update from our director, Ms. Weir.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council. The purpose of tonight's report is to provide Council and the community with another update on the wastewater treatment system issues. And I will preface with this with much of this information Council has heard a number of times. And so it may be a little bit repetitive, but I am going to walk through it for, community's sake and bring people along with where we're headed. And the most of the new information that's contained in this report is the budgetary impacts of the items we have previously discussed for your consideration. So as described in the body of the report, the proposed actions and related costs are to continue our efforts in these two areas. The first being the treatment plant noncompliance that are largely related to the volume of treated wastewater leaving the plant, the installed infrastructure on site, and the intermittent bypasses of treatment system in our emergency high flow situations. The Ministry of Environment is currently in the process of determining an administrative penalty or fine that will be applied to the city to enforce compliance with the city's existing and outdated permit from 1994. So this is the project that I've been providing twice yearly updates to council on, and the last formal update on that project was in December, Committee of the Whole 2025. But you will be aware that we've invested almost $1 million over the last 3 years in preparing our application for registration under the Municipal Wastewater Regulation, MWR, to gain a new regulatory permit and plan for the upgrades to our treatment plant in order to come into regulatory compliance. The second major issue in our wastewater system is created by the combination of climate change, creating short duration, high intensity storms more frequently, and the city's aging pipes and manholes in our collection system. These two factors create situations where large amounts of stormwater enter our wastewater system, increasing flows beyond our ability to convey those flows out to our wastewater treatment plant. And once they get there, to provide treatment for that level of elevated flows for a sustained period of time. So both of these issues have solutions, and we are making efforts to advance solutions in each of these areas. But the efforts, several of them involve complex regulatory approvals, long lead times, high levels of design effort and oversight. And so, like I mentioned, we'll go through the actions underway and the resulting budgetary impacts for council's considerations. So in the first area, the wastewater treatment compliance design, there's 5, let's say, tasks that we've assigned to this area. The first one, number 1.1, being the work that we've done since the submission in late 2025 through the ministry's pre-screening review of our MWR application. So this work is complete, and it was funded by reallocating existing budget in the wastewater treatment design project in order to advance this in a timely manner and respond to the ministry on their timelines. So it's not a next step, but it is here because it is a different task than was previously anticipated in using the wastewater treatment design budget. As a result of the ministry's response to our assessment of the submerged attached growth reactor's ability to provide disinfection on top of the total ammonia nitrogen reduction, so the city had proposed to use it as another form of UV disinfection. The ministry indicated that would not be acceptable, and therefore we are well underway now with designing an upgraded UV system that will be able to provide UV disinfection to the total flows at the wastewater treatment plant. That is the second task there. It is expected to be submitted to the ministry at the end of this week, June, or the beginning of next week, June 19th. Was our submission deadline to them, and that would wrap up the final requirement of our pre-screening phase. It should be noted that although the UV disinfection design wasn't anticipated or initially desired, it is set to provide some increased benefits to our system and its operations, as it provides redundancy and reliability improvements. So essentially the UV system is 2 banks of UV reactors, and it is quadrupling the current capacity of the city's UV system. So it will provide quite a bit more redundancy in that on an average day, you could take one of the UV banks offline and do maintenance, or if one of them was out of commission for some reason, you could still treat the flows. So good redundancy, and then also more reliability in the data we get from it. So it's more high tech, I guess I'll say. It has, real time inline UV transmittance monitoring linked to SCADA that shows the success of the treatment rather than, we largely rely on right now the results coming back from the discharge to the river to show the efficacy of the UV as installed. So some benefits to this additional component of our wastewater treatment plant beyond the increased expense that it is currently.
If I may, Director, so just to kind of remind folks, when we've had our first cost estimates for phase 1 of our system, I believe we were somewhere around the neighborhood of 40 million, and it didn't include this UV in that costing, so that we can expect that number to increase, I'm assuming.
Yes, thank you for the clarification. That's accurate. That was not part of the project when we've completed our Class D cost estimate. But we, through this fourth task here, the final engineering efforts in support of the MWR registration, in late August, we will be receiving a more detailed cost estimate that does include this, and that will form the basis of our financial strategy and funding plan for these upgrades.
Thank you.
So that fourth task there is work that was already anticipated to be the next steps of this process, despite the additional efforts and delays through the pre-screening phase. So that's taking our current set of drawings that we call issued for regulatory review. They're about a 75% drawing set, and getting those to final design stage and ready for tender. Updating those construction cost estimates. This is where we'll perform our constructability review, detailed walkthrough with how you would sequence construction and how that'll impact operations. And yeah, like I mentioned, these were planned in the project progression all along. And then the final item there, 1.5, is in response to and as required by the MOE non-compliance report we received in March. The city will be installing a new flow meter in an improved configuration and implementing additional programming to improve the recording and accuracy of the wastewater treatment plant discharging to the RI basins. And the flow meter is quite expensive, but it will be reused and repurposed to meet the requirements of MWR. So it'll temporarily assist in one area of our non-compliance with our current permit and will be used in compliance with our next permit.
Do we have a timeline for when we might be installing it?
Yes, it was ordered in late May and is expected to arrive 1 month after that. So in the next week or so, and then it's about a week installation timeline and getting it all programmed to SCADA. So this chart just is the same information from the report, but it shows the corresponding budget requests for each of those 5 tasks related to advancing compliance under our existing and renewed permits. To complete those tasks on the bottom right, we would require an additional $341,590. And this is largely driven by the top 3 scopes there, as discussed, and wanted to caveat that item 1.3, $60,000 for Ministry of Environment engagement, is just a reflection of the level of effort it took for us to pass through pre-screening with technical responses and our consultant and ministry discussions. And so we are budgeting that same amount for the detailed review phase, although we don't know exactly what to expect coming back in the detailed review phase. So it's the placeholder, and it certainly, wouldn't be spent if we didn't need to have further engagement on detailed design with the ministry. And I did want to note that the total project budget for this design work was $959,000 in 2025, and a good portion of that, $685,000, was spent in 2025, with $274,000 being rolled over to complete this MWR application this year. And the reason we didn't request additional budget for this design project as part of the 2026 budget process is that we weren't aware of these emerging concerns and constraints and the level of effort that would be required to address them. So that's why we're back now with a change to the project budget. But as Acting Mayor Audia Kelly pointed out, the Class D cost estimate was $40 million for these upgrades prior to the UV. And so although this design work is getting north of $1 million, that is still very reasonable for this magnitude of work. Engineering design for for a project of this size is typically estimated at 10% of the value of construction. So we're nowhere near there. And so just to provide some assurance that this is a large project, and that's why the engineering costs so much. The second suite of issues with our current actions underway and some new proposed actions for council's consideration are listed here, and they are related to the inflow and infiltration, getting into the sanitary system. So the I&I has been a known issue for over a decade, with the previous studies that were in support of the liquid waste management plan in 2010 through 2014, identifying the need to address I&I. And also the upgrades to the plant that were done in 2015 were sized to accommodate a high level of I&I. And there was a focused spending of the wastewater money from 2014 to 2019 on pipe replacement to address I&I. And that's around the time that we started pivoting from addressing aging pipes to focusing on critical maintenance of the existing wastewater treatment plant to ensure that it was operating smoothly, as well as spending in this category for our design project. So that's why the linear pipe replacements to address I&I has stalled out in the last 5 years to focus the funds on the issues in the previous set. So the recent storms, as we're aware, in March and this past December highlighted the impacts of these problems. And we have proposed a set of ways that we can start addressing those problems. So the first one is, some of these are a mix. The ones with stars you'll see are the ones that were already budgeted and you have heard about and are currently included in the 2026 work plan. And then the items without the stars are the new components of the plan proposed to address I&I in reaction to the storm events we witnessed in March. So 2.1 is parallel to the work that our consultants ISL are doing in the design of our upgrading our treatment plant. They are also analyzing the wet weather events from December 2025 and March 2026 to essentially help us better understand what caused the severe system issues and what additional solutions will be needed to update our overflow mitigation plan. So that's preventing overflows from occurring at the main sewage lift station and Riverside lift station based on an improved understanding of the storms that we encountered. This work was also actioned promptly following the storms using the existing wastewater treatment plant design budget and in response to the ministry enforcement action. And so this work is almost complete and we'll have the report by the end of June and be able to integrate any upgrades potentially into our larger total wastewater treatment plant upgrades necessary for compliance.
Councillor McIsaac, did you want to ask your question?
I guess what I wanted to ask was the comment that you had made about sort of holding off on I&I work while we focused attention on the wastewater facility itself. But now it appears that even though we are in the thick of wastewater facility upgrading, we're able to move back to I&I. And I just wondered if you wanted to make a comment about, is this a function of capacity, necessity, funding availability? Like, how are we able to kind of shift back to giving some attention to that while we're in the middle of this?
Yes. So what we've done is looked for the highest impact, lowest cost ways we can continue addressing I&I. So instead of replacing long sections of pipe and that necessitate ripping up the road and cost a lot of money, we're doing some of these things, which are kind of get into them here, but educating people about not pumping into the storm sewer and sealing manholes and working on plans to mitigate overflows so they're less structural solutions, and then therefore they cost less, and so we can do them alongside the heavy investments in the regulatory process.
Thank you. That's kind of what I was expecting you to say. What I'm wondering is now is comparing those sort of lower cost, higher impact opportunities that we're looking at. This is the low hanging fruit of I&I. Do we have a sense of how making good progress in that area? What sort of percentage of the problem it's possible for us to solve before we get to the having to dig up the roads and fix the major ones? Like, do we have a sense of what kind of improvement we can make at that level?
Acting Mayor through to Councillor, I don't have a number estimate for you on the percentage. We do now have flow meters in place and improved access to information. And so the best I could say is that we can take some of these actions and then we'll be able to measure their impact over in the next year. But we have not gone so far as to predict their impact in terms of a percentage reduction in I&I.
Thank you.
Item 2.2 there, you've heard of before. We have updated the sanitary collection system model to match current development, zoning updates, and calibration. So that is complete now, largely in the final stages. And the model is now being used to help us better understand the collection system capacity constraints and where we can focus our I&I pipe replacement goals moving forward. Item 2.3 is as a result of the intensity and complexity of the issues in the wastewater portfolio, we engaged a communications consultant to assist us in preparing a summary of the recent issues, and they have prepared for us a draft wastewater 101, which will provide a foundational baseline to improve public understanding of municipal wastewater processes and the impact that residents can have on that. And then in there will be focused information about cross connections, as we discussed, but it's above and beyond what we initially pitched in terms of creating education around just cross connections. It's an education campaign around the whole system and some history on how we got to where we are today. And you will see that being shared on the city's platforms in the coming weeks. Yes.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that this particular area is being put in here. I know personally, I regularly have discussions with people who believe that the city abandoned all work with wastewater 25 years ago. Nothing's happened since then. Like, it's literally at that sort of level of misinformation in the community. And there are people who are promulgating this idea that we don't do pipe work and we don't do all these things and to the detriment of that in order to pursue other measures. And in fact, it's not true. There's been ongoing work and lots of it and lots of money spent, and it's just a very big and complicated problem. So I think that's incredibly important to put out to the community. So.
The fourth item here is, as we've discussed at previous meetings, the focused attention on cross-connection discovery. So looking for where people are pumping stormwater or groundwater into the wastewater system and developing policy and bylaws to govern and enforce that. So we are hopeful that this will be a high value exercise if there's public cooperation. And we are looking forward to getting started on that work in the coming quarter. And item 2.5 is the manhole sealing. So this is, what can we do, low hanging fruit in the worst offender neighborhoods. We have, during rainstorms, the one in March in particular, and the several of the preceding or following larger storms, we've been doing ongoing manhole inspections and to locate the high flow areas during the storms of stormwater getting in. And so we have also been in contact with manhole repair companies and developed a budget to do a trial of sealing, using a new type of repair where you're sealing manholes from the inside. And the budget we've pitched is for 10. And the idea here is, 10 is not a large number compared to the number of manholes we have, but it can help us address the worst fender areas. And then it also lets us trial this solution. And we're hopeful that the contractor that we contract to might be able to train our own employees to apply this technique on manholes moving forward. And then the last action item in the I&I area is the sanitary system CCTV, which you are well aware that that's scheduled for this year. And beyond using it for our integrated infrastructure capital plan, we can also use it to help locate I&I. And so that's the intention and why it's linked to actions in this area. And so to complete those 3 additional suggested actions to address I&I in the short term, we would require $152,730. So the total additional spend recommended this evening from the wastewater reserve is $494,320. The current balance is there with the projected 2027 contribution based on the increased utility rates we set this year. With a note that, the rates set were calculated and developed to fund the high priority IICP projects, Integrated Infrastructure Capital Plan, knowing at the time that we set the rates that the IICP does not include wastewater and water facilities, and that we were anticipating a large wastewater treatment plant upgrades project. Like I mentioned, we will be getting our revised and more accurate cost estimates by the end of August. And at that time, we will begin our preparations for the 2027 budget and bring forward suggested impacts of what happens if you defer IICP spending to address this, or how are we going to fund our large upgrades. One piece of hopefully positive news is we are currently preparing an expression of interest for a federal funding stream that was just announced, Building Canada Strong Fund. They have a stream that's for improving environmental indicators and we can obviously tie that to the Elk River. And so at this point, it's not clear the timeline for decisions or there's no specified cost sharing apportionment between the parties, but it is simply you're asked to put forward your project and the cost and the funding your community needs. And so we will be submitting that in the next week or so. So that's it. We are here to demonstrate a commitment to resolving this suite of complicated wastewater issues. And we require additional investment to advance these initiatives. And so you can see there's a mix of a focus on long-term solutions, infrastructure planning and repair, system modeling, expanding to education initiatives and repair initiatives. And with these funds, we will continue progressing through our regulatory process to facilitate upgrades that will improve treatment and discharge to the Elk River. And we are advocating for a sustained commitment to these initiatives.
I'd like to echo the things that Councillor McIsaac said, because there has been a lot of ongoing work, and I really would like to commend staff for taking a look at this and looking at, as we sort of call it, the low-hanging fruit or the quick wins and the things that you can do. Thank you very much for doing that. I would really like to have the community grasp the complexity of the issue. Like, it's not one thing in isolation. It's quite a lot of things together. For example, I asked you about the additional cost for the UV, and I that costing is coming, but also people bear in mind, we have lift station upgrades that we need to do, and we have other things. So I hope the community grasps the extent and cost of this issue. I believe I recall a figure of something like 16 million being quoted in a 2011 report for I&I to be done for fixes. And that was in 2011. So does anyone have any other questions? Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Worship, or Acting Mayor. I'm just curious, the extra $494,000, does that take our 100-year graph that Mr. Burdett put together a couple months ago? Does that take it to 105 years now? Or like, I mean, is that just curious?
Thanks, Councillor Nixon. Well, for one, those graphs at the time was just our linear assets, as council will remember. And the deficit for wastewater was over 200 million. And even these, our 10-year plan of slowly increasing our contribution to reserves didn't quite close that gap. And so the messaging, I think, remains the same as it was during budget time. It's that like these small incremental increases are just chipping away at that deficit, doing what we can now. Like that, the first year increase was never going to fix the entire problem, which is what we said during budget time. So yeah, it does make it more than 100 years, but in terms of how many years, it's still just our best estimate. And we will keep that messaging going that we were behind, and we need to slowly catch up with every budget cycle ahead of us.
Yeah, and just to follow up, yeah, and I totally appreciate those. I really appreciate those graphs and the work that you've done on that as well. So, as well as Director Weir. So.
Just so we have an understanding, the current reserve balance is 975. We're going to draw down approximately close to 495 with this ask. So that leaves us with 480, and the 2027 contribution is $1,039,000. So that will bring us at 2027 to about 1.5 million in that reserve. Have I understood that right?
Yep, assuming that would be assuming there's no projects in 2027, which is unlikely to be the case. And then we also earn some interest on that money as well.
Do we have a recommended motion? Could you? Yep.
That council approve an increase in the budget for the wastewater compliance design project by $341,590, and that council allocate $152,730 to addressing inflow and infiltration, I&I, a set of additional wastewater projects for 2026 to address known areas of I&I into the city's collection system.
Moved by Councillor Hamilton, second by Councillor Nixon. Any further questions? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thanks, Director Weir. And that brings us to the end here. If I can have a resolution to close, that the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to section 90 sub 2 sub B sub I of the community charter, as a subject matter being considered at the time relates to information received and held in confidence relating to negotiations between the municipality and a provincial government. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, second by Councillor Nixon. Any discussion? All those in favor? Meeting will be closed. Thanks, everyone.